I am here from the coordinating committee, and I just want to kind of run down the plan for this meeting, and we'll go from there. Um, okay, we'll do a quick welcome. Hi, everyone wave. Um, there'll be a financial report. There'll be Susan Triolo is going to do a short presentation on ranked choice voting. And then we're going to go to our two main topics. One, whether or not we keep the office, and the other one is around how we deal with both the lead up to the election and the time immediately after the election. And then we'll have reports out from that, and that'll be it. We're going to do an hour and a half, and I'm going to try to keep us on time. Does anybody have any questions? If so, wave at me or something. Okay, then I'm going to turn it over to Dave Cohen to talk about the financial report.
Hi, everybody. So I'll go through this quickly. We have in our rent account $5,770.17. That includes $2,700 that the nurses who are now sharing our office have paid through July 2021.
Wow.
We have $7,180.62 in our checking account. 4,000 of that, though, is money that came as grants for the housing conference that we were co-sponsoring with Greening Greenfield. That's been postponed for a while due to the pandemic, and for the follow-up to our municipal socialism conference. So we have in our checking account available $3,180.62. And when we get to the question on the rent, I'll go into that money and our rent and office situation in a little more detail.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Any questions on that from anyone?
No.
Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to Susan Triolo, wherever you are. If you would like to, there you are, I see you. Would you like to do a presentation on ranked choice voting? You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not going to take 5 minutes unless people have questions. I just want to make a plug for people voting yes on question 2 for ranked choice voting. As they say, more voice, more choice. There's a number of states that are already using ranked choice voting very successfully. People may not know the city of Cambridge, Mass. Has been using ranked choice voting for over 25 years successfully. The state of Maine has voted twice now for ranked choice voting. The Republicans succeeded the first time in rolling it back, but the people prevailed, and Maine will be using it in the presidential election. State of New York, for some of its elections, uses ranked choice voting. Nevada, Colorado, and Kansas will also be using ranked choice voting for the presidential election. If in our election in 2018, when we had 9 people running for Steve Kulik's seat, if we had had ranked choice voting, it would have been much easier for all of us. And the thing behind it is that it opens up the process. It gives voice to more people. It gives opportunity for people to be able to run more successfully. And it takes away the whole notion of the spoiler in an election, because as probably everybody knows, you get to rank. You can either vote for only one person if that's your choice, if everything is too confusing, which is one of the reasons they say we can't have this. If it's too confusing, you are allowed to vote for just one candidate. But otherwise, you get to rank all of the candidates until one of them reaches a majority of 50%. And I won't go through explaining it, because you can go to the website, Voter Choice for Mass, if you want to see more about it or see videos. but it does open up the process. And yeah, I think that's, oh, what I was going to say, more women are getting involved, more people of color are getting involved, and there is no spoiler. You get to vote for the person that you really want to win, and then you get to vote for your second, third, fourth, etc. choices until they do the calculations and one person rises to 50% if that doesn't happen on the first ballot. Now, I want to say if there's anybody on this Zoom call that wants a lawn sign that has a good location and doesn't have one, Ruth Parnell and I have access to getting signs. So you can get in touch with me, or you could send a note to Dave Cohen and let him know, and we'll get you signs if you have a good location. So that's it.
Are there any questions that anyone has?
Ken?
Yeah, in reading the description that they sent out, this would exclude the presidential election?
Yes.
For Massachusetts?
For this state, yes.
Okay.
Maine is going to use it for the presidential election.
Yes, Maine will be using it.
Also, and I was surprised at that.
Also, Nevada, Colorado, and Kansas. I just looked at the map, and those states are using it for the presidential election.
Did you call on me, Susan?
Yes. Did you?
Okay. Sorry, my video keeps cutting out. Susan, could you tell people how they would get involved if they wanted to volunteer for the campaign?
Yes, absolutely. You go to Voter Choice for Mass. Or you can go to Yes On 2. That'll also get you to the website. And you can find out there how to volunteer. Yes, they've been wanting to do phone calling. I tried doing it one night, and since it was early in the process, they hadn't quite worked out the bugs, but I'm sure they have by now. That was a week ago.
Any other questions?
I see Bart going like this. Have you done the phone calling?
Bart, unmute. Bart, unmute.
I thought I had. I'm sorry. I guess I muted instead. Yes, we've been doing it for weeks, and it's working very well. It takes a little while to get used to it, at least for someone of my age, but it works. I think we do much better going door to door with a respectful distance and masks, because at least it's only 1 out of 20 or even less that actually you can ever get through to, because people are so sick of being advertised to death. So it's a big problem because of what's happened to our culture with the, corporate advertising and scams and whatnot. Okay, that's it.
Anyone else? I'm trying to look at each screen. Judy. Unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, yeah, I've been doing phone banking. I put it in the choice in the chat, and I also put the voter choice for MA or Yes On 2 in the chat, folks. And YouTube has a cartoon that's very illuminating with regard to what ranked choice voting is, and I put that link in the chat as well for anybody who would like to send it to someone who doesn't understand it. I've actually been sending it to people while I'm phone banking if they weren't quite sure what it meant, if they were willing to share the news with their friends and to make it simple. So yeah, I think it's really important that we do whatever we can. It took us 4 years to get it on the ballot, and of course we've known about it, or at least I have, for a lot longer, mid-70s. Anyway, thank you. I won't talk anymore about it.
Anyone else? This will be the last question. Michael and Penny.
wants to know if there's a text banking program.
I'm not sure. People who have been doing the recent calling, is there texting?
Yes, you can text, but
Yes.
I prefer to talk. I think it's more personal.
Michael,
But I do know from other phone banks that I've been doing that texting can be quite effective, because on other programs, the texting ensures that you will not get another phone call from that organization.
Michael and Penny.
Okay. I'm planning to vote for it, even though I know what the problems are with ranked choice voting are, because I figured the first time that there's one of those odd problems shows up in any, one of the states that has it, it will be fixed. It's fairly easy to fix. You don't change the balloting process. You just change the counting process. So I'm in favor of having it so people get used to it. And like I say, the first time it gives a weird result, afterwards is time to do the reform.
Okay, unless, Anne, and that's it.
Okay, I have heard someone say, well, isn't this a problem? Not that I believe this argument, but how do you respond? That someone, who really didn't get the most votes ends up winning the seat, whatever it is, because other people get dropped out in the process of ranked choice voting.
This is what happened in Maine when I don't know the Republican's name, but he was unseated by Jared Golden. And what happened was in the first ballot, he had the most votes, but he did not have 50%.
Right.
In order to win in ranked choice, you have to get 50%. So that's why the votes get retallied, so that what you end up with is the person who the majority of people wanted either as their first, second, or third choice, where this person, and I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but he had the most votes in the first round, but it was less than a third. So yes, that's one of the issues that comes up. But the thing is about it is you end up getting the person who has the majority of voters behind them. So you are moving for the person who has the ideas most supported by the majority of people.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for that question.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move us along because I want to make sure we get to everything. Okay, so if you have any further questions, you can contact David Cohen, you can contact me. We will get to Susan or to someone else who's working on this so that you can get the information you need.
I'll put my email in the chat.
Excellent. Thank you, Ruth. Okay, with that, let's move on to David Greenberg. Can you talk about the office?
No, that's David
Cohen speaking about the
office. David Cohen is talking about the office. Yep, I'm sorry. I messed up here. Sorry. Sorry.
So the question we want to put before people is whether we should keep our office in Greenfield open or close it. Now, let me explain a little bit. As everyone knows, we have the office right in downtown Greenfield, right by the Common in Greenfield. It's been a great place for when we're having demonstrations, great place to hold smaller meetings. The problem we've had with it since the pandemic has started is that we haven't used the office at all. It has very poor ventilation. Really, it has one tiny little window. It has very poor heating system. It's a big blower that doesn't put out much heat. And quite frankly, we've thought that it wouldn't be, under these conditions, very safe place to have meetings. But the pro of it is it's a great location. It's right downtown Greenfield, and the rent isn't too bad. We're paying $600 a month for rent. The nurses are paying half of that, $300 a month. They're paid up through July of 2021. Right now, when we got the office originally, what we said was that we would keep an office as long as we had enough of the membership supporting, paying money to keep the office open. We've had, and I got to thank everyone who's made regular monthly donations. We've had great people for several years now have been giving monthly donations. That amount of people has dropped off, especially once the pandemic hit and people hit some harder financial times. Right now we have 21 regular donors and they're contributing about $210 a month. Our share right now would be the $300 for half of the rent, plus about $50 a month for electricity. So as you can see, we're not bringing in enough money to cover our share of the rent. We have money in our rent account. Some of that, a lot comes from people paying far in advance, months, 6 months in advance, their monthly donations. So the question we have is, if we keep the office, we will need more people to make pledges of monthly donations so we can meet our share. If we let the office go, then we can begin a search we'll save money, and we can begin a search to try and find a new and better office space. If we do another office space, we'll also need more people to make contributions. So I think that's the basic facts of why we want to put this up for a vote right now. So are there any questions anybody has?
Ken?
How long are we obligated to be there under the lease?
We'll have to be there now through February. If we give notice now, we'll be able to leave by the end of February.
Okay.
Michael?
And, excuse me, does the coordinating committee have a recommendation on this?
No, we don't. So I would say I lean towards giving up the office and begin a search for something better.
Michael and Penny.
I have a question. The nurses, are we in communication with them, and what do they think?
We've tried to be in communication with them. They basically have been using the office for storage for material. They don't really hold meetings there. They have a lot of office records and things like that there. We assume if we did make the decision to move before July, we would have to rebate them that extra money they gave us through July.
Any other questions? Ann Ferguson.
Yeah, so on the alternative, I was just looking at the spreadsheet, and what's the name? So there's some other organization. Is that some other organization beside the nurses that we could share another office, a better office space? LABA? I just don't know what that is.
Yeah, I didn't raise that because we were talking. There's this LAVA, which is an arts organization that just opened up in Greenfield. They have a nice space, though we wouldn't be able, they use it a lot. So it's a possibility we could rent it for different things, maybe use it. I think we have to explore it a lot more to see if that would really work for us, because they do use it for night meetings and events, and that's when we use our office more is at night.
So I have a follow-up question. So in the last year, aside from storing stuff and, having a place that people know we exist, have there been regular meetings there at the office, and how many have there been? I mean, sorry, I suppose the COVID problem, but before that, maybe to get
before the COVID, we had a lot of the task forces would hold their meetings there.
Okay.
I don't have the exact numbers now, but on a regular basis, the task force would hold the meeting, the coordinating committee would hold its meeting there. We had some other groups, some unions would come in and use the space. And then whenever we had demonstrations in Greenfield, we would use it for sign making as a place to be. So I think it was fairly regularly used.
Okay, there are other questions. Okay, Edie.
Unmute yourself, Edie.
Edie, you're still muted.
There, got
There
it.
you go.
I don't know why my iPad's funky today. When you say you're looking for a new space, I tend to avoid as many meetings as I can now. So I haven't been in this space with FCCPR for a meeting in a long time. And with COVID, everybody seems to be out. I'm just wondering, what is your thoughts about when you say, I'm going to look for a new space? Are you considering the length of time we can still not wanting to be meeting as a group? How are you considering that in the long term? It seems to be a big factor. Why get a new space if you can't meet for another 6 or 8 or 10 months?
Well, I think that's exactly the question. I mean, we could begin looking see what spaces are there, see if there's spaces where they do have good ventilation. You can hold small meetings and things like that. I think a lot depends on the COVID crisis. You're right. So it's not, I don't think it's something we'd rush right into.
Anyone else? Anne, Doug.
I am I'm kind of in a quandary about this because I understand the money issue, but and agree that if with COVID it makes the office virtually useless at this point for us to use. The thing that that I can't, I'm having a hard time kind of getting a grip on is it's an ideal location for signage, for quick signage or, holding our stuff, holding friends of FCCPR. We've given them an opportunity to hold their stuff there. And it's been very beneficial for around election time to be able to use that office to kind of coordinate. I mean, I'm not saying we couldn't use something else if we find something better, but my first thought is I don't think that we're going to get a better place in terms of a location. That being said, I agree with what Dave said in terms of always being a month behind or always being behind and never being able to, unless we find a really generous donor who's willing to kick in some money on a regular basis. I agree that we'll dig ourselves into a hole.
Okay, I'd like to leave, if there's one more question and then we want to move on. I realized I have not explained the process and I should do that. What we're going to do is break into small groups. We're going to hit this question and also the question that David Greenberg's going to put out. And then we can have discussion in the small groups and then take votes in the small groups. So if you have another question, we'd really like to have it out there. Otherwise we'll move on. So I'm looking. Okay, Paul.
I'll try to make it quick, that FCCPR was very kind when we could no longer meet at the library for the Library Yes meetings. We had meetings there. And even then, when there was no COVID, it was for people who had real breathing difficulties, et cetera, they couldn't meet there with us. And this COVID is, even with a vaccine, is going to be around for years. And so I'm just putting out there that I'm questioning the space. I love the space for people who have breathing difficulties. That's all.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move us on to talk about the pre-election piece, and then we'll break into small groups. David Greenberg.
Okay, so a few folks from FCCPR and Trap Rock met a couple of days ago with representatives from a couple of groups in the Valley to discuss what to do in the event of a coup. And we're going to continue, we're going to contact additional groups, and we're going to continue that discussion today. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so For those of you who may be looking for something to do before the election, phone banks, text banks, voter protection stuff, postcards, whatever, this is a great resource. 413 Staying Connected has a whole slew of stuff that you can plug into if you're interested in that. In a few minutes, as Susan said, we're going to do some breakout rooms, and we're going to talk for about a half an hour about the office and the election. We would like each group to choose someone to give a very brief report out to include the results of the voting and 2 or 3 main points. We don't have a lot of time for this, so it'd be great if you could keep your remarks concise and to the point. First up is to discuss whether or not to keep our office, probably 10 minutes or so on this, and then a vote, yes, no, whether to keep the office. We'll bring those numbers back to the whole group at the end. I don't think it's an exaggeration to suggest that our democracy, such as it is at a risk of failing altogether. There are many national organizations that are discussing what to do in the event of a coup. One is Choose Democracy. They're asking individuals to sign a pledge, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And what we'd like to happen in these discussion groups is you should take a look at this pledge and talk about how we would contribute to this effort to save our democracy in Franklin County, the region, the state, and the nation. Also, let us know if you'd like us to continue this discussion at a later date. And then vote on whether or not you would like FCCPR itself to commit to the pledge. You might also want to look at Hold the Line, a guide to defending democracy, which is also accessible at choosedemocracy.us. Here's what the pledge looks like. So we will vote. We will refuse to accept election results until all the votes are counted. We will non-violently take to the streets if a coup is attempted. And if we need to, we will shut down this country to protect the integrity of the democratic process. So this is what we want to talk about in the breakout rooms, and I'm going to start those in a second or two. And hopefully this works. Let's see, how do I? How do I get into a waiting room? I could go into a room.
we could just have when we need it and pay some money for it for that particular event or meeting, and but not rent something permanently right now till we know more about when we're going to be able to be in a building and what might be available and what the rents might be, because it's hard to plan now when we don't know. But there are places we could probably, maybe even I don't know if the co-op is renting their space on the ground floor now or not, but I guess they're doing pickups there. But there's probably some options to get a space when we need it. I would be more in favor of doing that right now.
Okay. Anyone else want to jump in?
I really can't because it's my first time in your group. I heard about this meeting today through the Wendell State Forest Alliance, and there are a couple of people here in different
cool.
groups. Yeah, so I never knew you existed. So
did you join? Are you a member?
No, I mean we closed our meeting today at 12 o'clock. I don't know anything about you, how you go about being a member, how one becomes a member.
Well, welcome. Dave, can I ask you a question? Because the vote, is that just for members?
Yeah, presumably, yes. Only members of CPR who are up to date should vote.
Okay.
If you're not sure if you're up to date on your dues, then you can vote anyway, I guess. That'll be okay. And Lenora, if you want to find out more about us, you can go to fccpr.us and get onto our mailing list and join if you like.
What is the second C? Franklin County, and then the award, and then
Franklin
political
County,
revolution?
Continuing the political revolution.
Continuing?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Do you guys want to vote on the office? Do we need to dissect this more? How? Guys just want to take a vote and see where we're at?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, who would like to keep the office? Put your hands up. Well, that was easy. Okay,
Karen, is somebody assigned to take notes and report out?
I put it on my phone. No, we didn't really get official. I feel like I'm running my mouth a lot right now, so if someone else wants to report, that would be good. Okay, who wants to lose the office? Let's try that. 2, 3. Okay, well, I think we kind of have a hello, anything.
I just raised my hand.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
all right. The office is done. We are kind of unanimous. Okay, cool. All right.
So unanimous to lose the office.
Apparently so.
A no vote, that is. Okay.
Cool. So, so the next thing is all the Michigas, to throw out a Yiddish word, around the election and our so-called democracy all the way up and down. So that's fun. How are people feeling about the pledge that was put up on the screen as far as the organization CPR going along those lines, and what does that look like, and blah, blah, blah? What are some initial thoughts?
Why don't we go around the room, and if people have something to say, they can say it. If not, they can pass.
Or would it be helpful to put the pledge back up again so people can see it? Or
I can
do that.
Do people want to see the pledge again?
Just read it. Just read it to us.
Read it to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the pledge reads, we will vote. We will refuse to accept election results until all the votes are counted. We will non-violently take to the streets if a coup is attempted. And if we need to, we will shut down this country to protect the integrity of the democratic process. It's a 4-point pledge.
How will that happen? That last item. What is the thought about how that? I mean, it sounds like an awful lot of hoo-ha.
That's a very good question. I don't know. I mean, I would hope if labor unions get involved in a big way, I mean, a general strike's the way to do it. I don't know if we would get that in this country at this stage, but I suspect there are ways to make it very difficult to do life as normal.
I was picturing a general strike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I give a little input? The Atlantic just published this week an early edition of their November issue in which Barton Gellman describes, or it's an interview, and it was on NPR as well, where I heard it, and it raised a lot of eyebrows, and my eyebrows and red flags. This vote, this election, will it break the America or this country? And he urges very much that we go to grassroots movements and organizations connect with each other. Also, everybody can read it. You just search for The Atlantic, Barton Gellman, and then make up the titles. It will come up.
It's easy to find.
So, pardon?
It's easy to find.
Yeah, and one big thing he says right away, as many people as possible should volunteer to help supervise the votes at the voting polls. He also said it is better to vote in person because the mail-in vote, whoever has not plans to do mailing in, these mailed in envelopes, the inner envelope, there are 2 envelopes, will not be opened until the night of November 3rd, which delays hugely the total counting. So in person, he says, I'm doing it. So read the article or listen on NPR to his interview. It's absolutely riveting. And he doesn't use the word coup, but he is warning us. He said, forewarned is better than not to know. So that's why I'm here, because he tipped me off to pay attention what could happen. It's serious.
So, and I feel like another issue that I'm sure people have thought about, but we haven't mentioned here yet. So even if we're not looking at like a coup per se, there are a lot of hotheads out there who are not going to be satisfied no matter what happens. Exactly. You tell them the sky is blue and they tell you to go like do your research and wake up sheeple, and they're so unhinged. And I'm not talking about your average, conservative family member who just disagrees with you, but there are some people out there who are making bombs in their basement and have been for decades. And they've been radicalized. And I think that right now with Donald Trump kind of like giving them permission to do this more publicly, and also with, the way it's so, information is so accessible through the internet, people are able to find each other, even if they live far away. I think that this is just coming to a head in a really scary way. I don't know if you folks have heard of that group QAnon, but I think that even if Donald Trump steps down, which is, what he should do if he loses, right? There are some of his supporters that are going to get angry and violent. And I worry about what our response is to them. And I don't feel like there are tons of them in Franklin County, but it's not like there are none. So a question with no answer.
The point is that Trump will enable, he already does it, to send his own people into polling stations. And even there, the confrontations can happen. Maybe not here in where I live, near Greenfield, but he will, they will.
Anybody who hasn't spoken want to say something? Dorothy or Ann and Doug, John?
Well, I'm wondering, I know there's things that are going to happen all over the country, and how are we going to focus our energy to deal with that, as well as be conscious of what's happening here, which, as we're saying, is probably not going to be anywhere near as extreme as in other places, but we need to have a response locally as well. So it feels like there's 2 different issues for us where we're in a better place where we live, but we still have to be cognizant of what's happening without being in those places, and how are we going to interact with people in those places. And so, yeah.
Well, I think we will be tapped into a national networks that we've done this before with Move On. We'll get 24 hours notice that we're supposed to be in the streets. The question will be, from what I've heard, that they want to have large, really large demonstrations in cities. They're not really looking for people to gather like in places like Greenfield. On the other hand, for us to get to Boston, we can't rent a bus, we can't carpool. So it's going to be very difficult. I don't know. I think we're going to try to do some there may be something in Northampton. People maybe can get to Northampton. So I think we'll try to do some stuff locally, and to the degree that we can, if we can hook into some of these national events. I mean, the idea is, the reason behind that is to get a lot of media attention. And if you have 100,000 people marching, you get more media than if you have 100. So that's the rationale. We'll have to see how it plays out. I don't know.
Ask, is this a requirement to have nonviolent training for, demonstrating in a particular way that could result in arrests?
I think, I mean, that'd be a good thing to do. I don't think every demonstration is going to involve civil disobedience. There may be groups of people who want to do that, and presumably they will be trained on how to do that, and we'll know who's doing it CD and who's not. So I don't think that'll be a requirement that people have to do CD.
We have to, we have to think about COVID itself at the beginning of November. We first started talking about this several weeks ago, and that was the first response of people I talked to. Well, I'm not going to get on a bus. Can we get on a bus? Can we carpool? Can we stand in the street? Right. And and can we get arrested? Right. Yeah, that's a very significant problem.
True. Right.
Oh, I was going to say something about doing poll monitoring. ACLU in Massachusetts is looking for people to sign up to help do poll monitoring. So if you go to aclum.org, I think that's ACLU Massachusetts, you should be able to find that information there. If anyone's interested.
So does anybody have any information about, like, I've never done it myself. What exactly would people do if they're poll monitoring?
I don't know. I haven't done it either.
That's a good question. I'd like to know that too.
I've been an observer.
In the last election, when I voted at the high school, there were people who were standing a certain amount of distance behind the checkout tables, watching to be sure, so they had a view of the whole distance from the check-in to the checkout tables. And they were not allowed to be spoken to. They I remember somebody trying to reach out to them, because it's distracting, and their whole presence is there to make people feel that nothing can go wrong, that they are watching everything.
Yeah.
And, the ACLU is offering Zoom training on poll watching. So if you're interested and want to find out more about it, if you go to that website, I think I signed up already to help out at the polls in Coleraine. And I signed up for the poll watching seminar to see what's involved.
So maybe we just want people there to observe and make sure that we don't run into physical altercations. Is that kind of the goal? Because you can't watch how people vote. You can't see if.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think.
I just wonder what does it accomplish? And I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm saying I don't understand it well enough.
Witnessing.
Yeah, witnessing. And filing complaints. And you can file complaints, I assume, if you see something that's weird.
It would discourage those who would want to enter the room with bad intentions. It's just like with the killing of George Floyd. You need witnesses, maybe not standing there of course not with a camera when you vote, but eyewitnessing is very important today.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Do people know if anything's happening with the, there was a statement that came out a while ago for our state that there were going to be polling places set up at different times besides the 3rd, that there would be outdoor spaces, there would be some on the weekends. so that people could vote and that towns would come up with a way to do this. And I haven't heard any more about that. Has anyone?
There's definitely early voting in every town, but
this
each
was
town
yeah,
picks the days and the times.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I know in Coleraine, we're going to have voting from October 17th through the 29th.
I think
pretty much every day, different hours every day, but we're going to have over a week of early voting. And I think
where's that happening? At the town hall?
In Coleraine, it is, I believe, yeah.
I think that's statewide. I think I read it.
Yeah, it is.
It's
yeah.
statewide, but each town picks which hours they're going to be open on which days. So you have to check your town website or something. And I think early voting is the way to go. That's what I'm going to do. I think that's the safest.
You do?
Yeah.
But the vote will not be counted. It will not be counted until days later. And this is what Barton Gellman really makes a very strong point about, that the delay, it takes lawyers and many people to open all these envelopes. And the guy on the Hill is taking advantage of this delay. That's his point. You just should read or listen to the interview.
I know that, but some states are also going to start opening ballots during early voting, apparently. Some states are doing that. Yeah, I mean, voting, where we live here, probably voting on election day is relatively safe.
And also, we're in Massachusetts, so we know, regardless of what each one of us does as an individual, how we vote, if we vote, when we vote, we're in Massachusetts, and we know how Massachusetts is going to go.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is more of a problem in some of the swing states.
Right.
So we have
I don't know about other towns, but in Greenfield last year during the election, what they did with the people who voted early and the people who had to vote by mail, absentee, they brought them in at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and they started putting them through. So in Greenfield, I know we do them the same day, but that might not be possible in, like Chicago or, Pittsburgh or someplace that's really big.
Mm-hmm.
So we have about 9 minutes left. We should think about this pledge and whether we want CPR to endorse this and adopt it.
I was just gonna say, circling back to the pledge, because I tend to really agree with Becca. I think the pledge is kind of meh. It's a nice gesture, but ultimately, what does that even really mean? To me, it's a little weak and just vague. And I mean, sure, the organization, it's a nice gesture. We can certainly, I could get behind CPR backing it, but ultimately, do I really think it matters? Honestly, probably not. To me, I
supporting a general strike. I can imagine supporting voting, and to support taking to the streets just to show up if there is any. In fact, I suspect a lot of people are going to show up anyway. But I think the fourth issue, you're taking over, whatever. I just think that's insincere.
Yeah, I would agree. It seems like a really insincere, just for show kind of nothingness pledge. Yeah. I would go so far as to kind of call it bullshit, but I mean, no, I'm sorry. My concern too is just that we need to kind of think about this, because if we're really saying, and I don't want to speak for anyone, but if the general consensus is that we are afraid of this coup, which is a very, I'm not saying it frivolously, should that be what we're actually talking about? I don't know. With military backing and fascism and all of that, well, you could also then make the argument that then under that kind of threat and regime, taking to the streets in this peaceful protest might be kind of the dumbest thing we could possibly do, because that kind of regime could possibly just show up and kill you. So either it's not fully fascism, in which case we feel like we could take to the streets non-violently, or it is, in which case maybe we got to rethink our strategy. Like, I just think we need to be really clear about what we're thinking might happen.
That is a good point. I mean, I think most people here know I've got a military background, you know, and they talk about like the places that make the best military targets are places where you're going to have lots and lots of people that you don't like all gathered together in one space.
Right.
And I don't want to sound morbid or anything. And, you know, again, I don't think that this would happen in Greenfield, but, you know, if you really want to talk about like what's the safest option, it's better for people to be scattered physically. But again, I don't think we have enough folks like that in Greenfield. In fact, I saw a picture. So one of my constituents here in Greenfield she's a big Trump supporter, and she posted this picture on Facebook of this like Trump rally, but it was like 5 people. So I mean, I don't think we have a lot of those folks in Greenfield, but you do make a good point. Like, you know, sometimes we don't think these things all the way through, and we certainly don't think about them the way the other side thinks about them.
If you go to the choosedemocracy.us site and you look at that report, forget what it's called, Hold the Line report, there's been a lot of studies done. There's a pretty well-known study done of how to defeat a coup. And the basic take-home message is mass nonviolent demonstrations. And it really, really lots of people. I mean, this is going on now, you know, in where's the country where?
Belarus.
Yeah, Belarus, right. It's happening. That kind of stuff's happening. And they document which coups failed and why. We have a head start in that Trump basically announced he's going to try to do a coup somewhat, to some degree. So I actually like this pledge, and I think it is meaningful. I think we're making a statement if CPR adopts this. I think we will do these things to the best of our ability. If lots of, this pledge is up there for individuals to sign. If millions and millions of people sign this, and I think that could make a difference. I think that if we get those kinds of numbers out in the street, it'll be very difficult, I think, for a coup to be successful.
The other thing, though, too, is like, in order to have a coup, you need backing by the military. The military, as far as I know, has already said they're not getting involved. And also, Trump has been insulting the military for 4 goddamn years. Why the hell would they help to keep him in office? And if they're not, then exactly what is the entity that's keeping him in office? Like, I think a lot of this is talk to rally his base. I can't, I'm like...
Yeah, I mean, it's
seriously.
Very likely Trump tells people to do things and they say no, and it's over. I mean, what's he going to do? I mean...
Right, what the hell is he going to do?
So
yeah, that's why I think the bigger threat is his supporters, not because I don't see him
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole other.
It's not the military. It's the people who are. I heard also on NPR, which I didn't listen too much to, but there are not signs in Pennsylvania. There are flags in the front yards saying Trump. There is a growing movement, and it is the people who are really disenfranchised, people who arm themselves and who are already riled up. It is not the military that is going to turn against us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly how we do it.
Trump has quite a significant support in the police.
Yeah.
And those people who support Trump distinctly don't like us, the people who want to defund the police.
Yeah, and it's the same people. I mean, these white supremacist groups have been trying to infiltrate the police department since before I was born. And, the ones who can't pass the fitness test, they just become, I don't know, preppers. But I mean, it's the same people with the same attitude, they all want to play weekend warrior,
All right, we've got about, Karen, 2 minutes left?
I'm terrible time management. Why are you asking me? Yeah, sure.
We should probably see if we can come to some decision and see where people are on this.
Okay.
Well, there's one thing I'd like to say, if that's okay, about the pledge, is that signing a pledge is both a public statement and a personal gesture. And when you sign a pledge like that, you do commit yourself to take that action.
Right.
And that's a significant aspect of the function of a pledge.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it was more specific, and whether it general strike, I just wish it was like a little, I can't find the word, but I the way it's written now, I kind of just shrug my shoulders and go, we could, we couldn't. I really don't think it matters beyond some symbolism, honestly. And I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying that's where my head's at right now. So I could really go either way. Do we want to take a little vote and just kind of see like who would like the pledge, like for real? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I would say.
6.
I mean, I don't know whether I can vote.
Yeah, David?
Yeah, that's okay on this. I think so, yeah.
That's okay. Okay, so we have 6. I'm
yes.
counting it right. 6 for the pledge.
And 2 no? Is that correct?
I think we're the holdouts. I think it's the 3 of us. And like I said, I'm kind of straddling a line, so it doesn't matter because our group is it's majority, so cool. Like I awesome. All right, so we'll call it 6-3. All right, we're good. We have our totals. The office was unanimous. The pledge is 6-3.
All right, and the breakout rooms are closing now.
Good talk, guys.
Thank you.
Do I hit leave?
Hit return to main session.
Yeah, you'll go back to the main session.
It'll do it automatically.
Oh, I don't touch
If you don't do it, it'll show. Yeah, it'll.
Okay,
just
I'm not going to touch anything.
Okay, everybody should be back in a minute or two.
Hey, we made it back.
So far, so good.
Okay.
We're back.
Everybody here?
Yeah, 37, 30.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Good enough. Okay. What we'd like to do is start with the votes and just get from the reporters straight up. No discussion, just, there were 5 of us, 3 yes, 3 no. Okay, so just so we know what we have. And Doug is going to record those and then get us back with what the totals are. Okay, so group 1. Who is reporter for group 1? Okay, Ann. We want what the office vote first. So let's just start with the office vote.
8-0 to give up the office and declare notice.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Group 2.
I think that's us. I don't know.
Yeah, that's us.
Okay.
Sorry. Giving up the office was unanimous to give it up.
And that was 9 votes.
9 votes, yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
9-0.
And the pledge was 6 in favor of the pledge and 3 against.
Okay. Let me go back to Ann. Ann on the pledge vote.
8-0 in favor of taking the pledge.
Okay. Another group. Raise your hand. Somebody. Okay. Eileen. Eileen, you're muted. Eileen, you're muted.
Okay, we voted on the office 7-0, so 7 to close it. And on the pledge, we voted yes for the pledge and 1 abstention.
Okay, other group.
What were the numbers for that group on the pledge?
On my group,
Yeah.
It was 6 for the pledge, 1 abstention.
Okay, another group. Wave to me. Susan T.
You're
Susan,
muted,
you're
Susan.
muted. You're muted.
Okay.
On the office, we were unanimous to close 7 people and 1 visitor who didn't get to vote. And on the pledge, it was 7 unanimous for FCCPR to investigate whether we can join as a group, and then discussion of whether individual people want to take their own individual pledge.
Okay, another group. I'm looking for waving. Okay, Ken.
Group 5, I think I'm supposed to be recording this. We were unanimous on closing the office also, 7-0, and unanimous on the pledge, same count.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm
That's
looking.
it. There were 5 groups.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, good enough. Okay, so well.
What about Ferd? He was our group.
Ferd?
Yeah, I already gave it.
Someone did that.
Oh, thank you.
Eileen
Yeah,
did.
Eileen reported.
Okay. Okay, so we've got Doug, do you wish to, I think it's fairly clear what's happened, but Doug, officially give us the numbers. Doug? You're muted, Doug.
Where is Doug?
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's 38-0 to close the office. And for the pledge, it's 41-3 to 1 to all join the pledge, for the organization to join the pledge.
Okay. All right. With that being said, I know in my group, there were a number of questions or issues people had that they wanted to bring to the group as a whole. And so what I'd like to do is suggest that the reporters, once again, give us the, what, if any of those issues are, and just put them on the table. So Eileen.
Okay, so we had a question, first of all, what does it mean to shut down the country?
I think we lost a piece of that, Eileen. What does it mean to shut?
We wanted to know, what does it mean to shut down a country?
Okay.
Okay, that was one thing.
Is someone taking minutes now?
We should have someone taking minutes.
I will.
David is. David Cohen is. Okay.
Okay. Then we also realized that the pledge was vague in some ways, but we thought that may turn out to be a positive, only because then we can make the pledge mean what it means for us in our area. And we should also find out what the Choose Democracy group is going to do with all of our names, you know, all the names of the groups that sign on to that. And what does that mean?
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay.
Can I add from that group, just very quick? There was some sentiment that in terms of what to do, that if people can get down to DC, that may turn out to be the thing to do, but that we really wanted to start organizing locally and could use this pledge via newspaper ad, outreach to other organizations, etc.
Susan Triolo.
Okay, we were a group of 7. I'm just going to tell you the questions that came up. What does it mean to defend democracy? How do we have a common understanding of the word coup? How would we shut down the country? If we, let's see, that there's many variables involved in all of this that we can't know right now. And should FCCPR call a meeting where members would agree to meet in 48 hours? So are people willing to have a sort of emergency meeting within 48 hours. And we would have to know, I guess, what the triggers might be for that. Should we have a meeting scheduled for November the 4th, the day after the election? Someone mentioned whether these emergency emails going out should be marked indicating that it's an action email as opposed to an everyday email, so that it wouldn't get tossed instead of opened. And another group has talked about using Proton Mail, which is an encrypted system. Someone asked about how are we going to ensure to include people of color in this work? And then we also, like Ferd, discussed about where we would want to have actions. And in our group, I think it was 7 out of 7 wanted to have a Western Mass action, which could be Greenfield, Northampton, Springfield, have Western Mass rather than going to Boston.
Okay.
And I think that's it, unless I missed anything.
Okay. Anyone else from that group wants to add? Okay. Another group. Reporter. Karen, did you report back?
Yeah, we failed on actually naming a reporter, so I guess I can run my mouth. That's fine. Or if David wants to, that's cool. I mean, I don't know that we did anything earth-shattering. We talked a lot about wanting to get some information on what it means to be a poll watcher. Am I using the term right? Like the people that kind of oversee at the polls. Apparently the ACLU is offering training to be a poll watcher if you want more information on that or are interested in doing it. One thing we discussed around the pledge was wishing that it was a little more specific in terms of like, if maybe it was calling for a general strike, that might have been good. I understand the point about it being vague and maybe then you make it what you want, but there's a flip side to that too, which is that it's vague. We had a lot of the same things, you know, what exactly is a coup, and especially if the military doesn't get involved, what is the entity that's actually making this happen? And we talked about too, you know, put aside the actual coup or anything official, that it's more the fear or the potential threat of a section of Trump supporters that we may have an issue with. And that's a harder thing to fight because that's more, it's so unofficial, you know, but a section that's kind of looking, it's already so riled up and looking for any excuse. So I don't know if I'm leaving, am I leaving anything out? You were there.
Well, I think a lot of our questions have actually been covered already by other groups and are already.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so.
I think that covers it.
Okay. There are at least one more group that I'm missing. So is there a reporter? Go ahead, Ken.
I'll talk about the questions. We talked about the issues of, first of all, the issues of COVID and what that means to having larger site demonstrations in Massachusetts or nationally. And also the fact that this pledge, seeing as it's talking about shutting the country down, pretty much is talking about a national action. So there has to be probably has to be a national component to whatever the other action is. We did also talk about the necessity of getting people and communities of color involved at the beginning, so that we wouldn't be inviting them to our event in very white Franklin County or Western Mass, but having them involved on the planning committee to plan the action right from the get-go. So they would be a founding member of whatever action takes place. Thought that was important. Let's see what else. Did I miss anything? Anybody else or misstate anything? Anybody in my group?
We did talk about the need for a follow-up meeting to get into the details of this, but I think you are, the coordinating committee is already thinking of that. I'm not sure, but anyway, we supported talking in more detail at another time.
Okay, I think there's one more group to report, am I correct?
Yeah, that's our group.
Okay, Anne, go for it.
Yeah, so a lot of the questions have been already brought up, but we did think that shutting the country down means a general strike, and that we should be explaining what that means, because a lot of people don't know what that means, and it will mean something different for different people. I mean, obviously, if you're employed, if you're under union contract, you know, and you decide to go out on the national strike or general strike, your union might be sued. If you're retired, it's very different. And so some of the issues of organizing this will take, you know, more meetings by our group and some planned meetings, and they will depend on situations. It was mentioned by Judy, I think, that there are ways to organize locally. For example, Greenfield, in the past, unions have met with the police and worked out scenarios, plan A, B, C, and it might be important to do that now. In terms of national actions, it's pretty clear that there will be the Choose Democracy groups will be probably making some kind of national coordination, so we can, there will be some suggested decisions about, you know, this long process of after November 3rd, under what conditions certain actions will be suggested by coordinated national groups. And there is, you know, obviously will be very different if we have a clear win by Biden and illegal acts by the president. You know, will the National Guard, you know, we have to be concerned that the National Guard will be called out by various governors in various states, but it's really going to be unclear what happened, how people will respond in different scenarios. So I think, let's see, I don't remember, yeah, someone mentioned the ACLU training for poll monitors and the importance of that. And we didn't really discuss, like other groups, whether or not our members felt that we should be focusing on a Western mass demonstration or not. And we talked a little bit about the whole problem of the Electoral College versus popular voting, and the question of rigging the Electoral College vote, and under what conditions that would count as triggering a national strike. And we figured that that is, again, going to have to be decided in the context, the tactics and strategies of when various aspects of some kind of national strike, continuing ongoing actions happen. I don't know if anybody else wants to clarify from our group. Anything else?
David?
No, I was just saying she covered it all.
Okay.
I remembered one other thing that came out of our group that I want to at least raise, which was the question of, can 30 some odd of us speak for the entire organization of several hundred? So thinking about our relationship to the entire FCCPR membership and saying, yes, this was an open meeting that anybody from the organization could be at, and we chose to be here. What is our responsibility, if any, to the larger group around making a decision for what the organization should do? So I'm not selling it one way or another. That was just another point that came up.
Okay. David Cohen, do you see, since you've been taking notes, do you see any commonality among these questions? Are there some themes there that we can talk about, or one theme we can talk about in the next 12 minutes? And what I'd like to also you know, I think perhaps the question is around getting people together again to talk about things and trying to figure out a way to organize ourselves. But I would like you to, if you can see anything there.
Well, I think just quickly looking at this, the question of will there be more clarity as we move down the line on terms of a national organization organizing something? So I think we need to relay that to people who are organizing on a bigger basis than us. But I think that was clear. I think the idea of having more meetings, that we need to have more meetings to start as the situation becomes a little clearer, to flesh out what we're going to do and what we're going to plan. So I think the coordinating committee should be talking about setting up something like that. Hold on one second. I think in terms of building a coalition, I think it's really clear and correct that we need to, especially with people of color, involve them right from the beginning if we're going to hold sort of more coalition meetings to discuss what we're doing. So I think we need to take that under advice. I think that's it. And in the future, I mean, a bunch of people did raise what is a general strike. So we can talk about that because that term gets used a lot these days.
David, and along with that, I think this whole question of what's the trigger for anything happening, you know, and what are we going to assume? And I don't know that we can get an answer to that right away, but I think that that's something that we have to look at.
Right.
Okay, we've got about 9 minutes. Are there any, I guess the question for me is, we are going to have a coordinating committee meeting on the 8th. We can get back to all of you and to everyone else who wasn't able to be at this meeting to talk more about this, and we'll try to figure out a way to make that as useful as possible so that we're not, you know, 40, 50 people all trying to talk at the same time. But you know, among the questions that we have before us, I'm hearing that this whole question of what's a general strike or what's the trigger, how do we know what we're doing when we're doing it, and what's our connection to national organizations and what they're doing. What do we want to do locally as a question? Are there other questions that are key, considering what we've been talking about, that you want to make sure we put on the table so we can get back to you with them? Okay, Eileen.
Okay, we talked too about right after the election. This was 4 years ago. We decided as a group that we hadn't had FCCPR, but we decided as a group, well, let's put an ad in the recorder, and then we would have people show up at the Grange Hall just to be able to express their feelings and their grief over the election. So we're wondering now, with COVID as it is, if there's some way that we could arrange something that would allow people to at least gather and somehow safely just kind of express their feelings or know that they're not alone. And we're wondering as a group how that could possibly happen.
Okay, I think that's legit. Are there other things that we want to make sure get on the coordinating committee agenda this next time, then we will get back to you with them? Sandra.
I think we should connect with Indivisible, because if they're organizing nationally and they're local in Northampton, we should be coordinating with them.
Yep.
And also, I want to just share that the Interfaith Council of Franklin County is holding 2 kind of gathering in the spirit gatherings on October 15th and on November 2nd, the night before the election, just to give people that kind of space that was just mentioned. Just share feelings, but also prayers and hopes and intentions.
Who is organizing that?
The Interfaith Council.
Oh,
of
okay.
Franklin County.
Okay.
Paul?
Just, I want to repeat something that Doug said in our group that I think is really important, is not only do we need to be together with people of color, but people who are young people, the people who got the 2,000 people together in Greenfield were not a geriatric organization as we tend to be. And that should be done not at later meetings, but right away by the coordinating committee.
Okay. Louise.
This probably goes without saying, but I hope we will prioritize safety for people's health. It would be a really terrible irony if our actions protesting this horrible, irresponsible man led to, constituted super spreader events.
Okay. Other things, we've got about 5 minutes left. Mary M.
Just very briefly, I put the link to the ACLU poll watcher training in the chat for anyone interested.
Other comments? I'm going back and forth. So wait a minute, I just saw a hand. Excuse me, just a second. Okay, Susan T.
I don't know if this was already said, but when the coordinating council meets, coordinating committee, if you're going to try to come up with a list of, based on everything going on, what you think represents a coup or where we are already starting to lose our democracy as a starting point of a discussion. And I see Ruth Parnell just put her email in the chat. If people want signs, or ranked choice voting signs, she's in Conway and has signs.
David Cohen.
Just to answer one question, I think Ken Eisenstein is part of Indivisible Leadership Statewide. He's on this call. So we have that link to what Indivisible is talking about. I think in the past, we've said that votes taken at a General Assembly when we've publicized them, that's where the organization makes its decisions. So I think, and then we still have to try and convince all the rest of the people who didn't attend this meeting to go along with it. But I think this is a good reflective body. And then I would just say for people who aren't members, please join, $10. And then you can vote on all sorts of things.
Okay, Ken.
Yeah, I'd like to say, whoever said earlier that Indivisible Northampton is involved in planning something, that's part of the state Indivisible, and a number of groups are working on that. It's really, the action's not going to belong to any one group. And we're looking for people from all over to step up and become part of the planning and part of the committee that's coordinating that. So there will be, Indivisible will be involved with a lot of groups that we're trying to pull together to have a regional Western Mass action.
David Greenberg.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so CPR is also an Indivisible group also.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely be in touch with Ken and be involved in this.
Okay, David, also people asked how they could copy the chat or how we would be able to copy the chat. David, you're muted.
The way to copy the chat is if you open the chat window and go to the very bottom, you'll see 3 little dots. If you click on that, the top item is Save Chat. And that'll allow you to save the entire chat. I don't know if we broke into groups. I'm not sure what happens. No, I think it's everything. I think it'll be the whole chat.
Okay. Are there other, we've got 2 minutes. Are the other, Michael and Penny.
Okay. I just want to point out that especially for an outdoor action like, a long march through the streets, if you have to stay several, the people have to go 6 feet apart wide and 6 feet apart in depth. It makes a much more impressive parade.
We could share banners between everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments before we close up?
Judy.
Judy.
I was just thinking that it would be good to get the word out to the larger community, and maybe somebody doing a little report, like for the Montague Reporter, or a letter to the editor or something about the content of the meeting and, you know, pretty much what we're looking at for the elections.
Okay. Last thought before we close. One more. Are we okay?
I'd just like to thank everybody for being here today.
Yes.
Thank you.
I appreciate our community.
Yes.
This was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, coordinating committee.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
everybody.
We'll
Goodbye.
see you. Bye.
Thank you to
More to come.
young people who are in here.